So I'm delighted to be joined by Michael Chatto from a company called Genpact. Welcome, Michael, and to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so just to give a bit of background on Genpact, you're basically supply chain experts, essentially, and help a lot of the tier one, the front end wafer manufacturers and major companies manage their supply chains and issues across the world.
Yeah, experts always high praise, but within Genpact, we're about $5 billion business professional services firm that supports consulting as well as run operations for our clients. My responsibility is the supply chain service line, which is a team of about 10,000 people. And to your point, we support 17 of the 20 largest semiconductor companies across foundries, IDMs, fabless, as well as equipment.
Well, and that's a huge footprint and a huge size of company already, so you must be experts in what you do.
I rely on my team to be the experts.
Right, okay. Well, I mean, obviously it's been a very active time, I'm sure, for you, because, I mean, we've had a whole lot of geopolitical issues happening across the supply chain. Tell us some of the strategies and some of the things you do to help your customers navigate it.
Absolutely. I would say we could kind of bucketize it in three key areas. One of the key areas you mentioned is obviously around geopolitical risk and supply chain disruption.
Right.
So we help companies design resiliency in their supply chain network. That can take the form of nearshoring or diversification of supply sources, so finding secondary and tertiary sources of supply. In that area, we're helping clients map the multi-tiers of their supplier network, so there are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, identify areas in which there's significant concentration to one or two providers, and then help identify alternatives. And a lot of times we'll go in and do value-based engineering to bring suppliers maybe to a different industry to be qualified to support the semiconductor industry in the space. And we'll partner with capital allocation investment banks to help do that development of the suppliers. So supplier development and risk mitigation is one key area. Second key area is obviously building agility and responsiveness. So this is where we're looking to try to connect enterprise systems, leveraging technology and analytics to be a little bit more proactive in identifying areas of volatility and risk, and then building scenario structures to be able to run cross-functional trade-offs and make decisions closer to near real time with better information.
Right.
And then last but not least, we'll do a lot of long-term strategic planning or integrated business planning solutions that help companies look and plan 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. Because as you know, development in the semiconductor industry, building new fabs takes a long period of time. Yeah. So we're looking from a longer scale perspective as well.
Okay. So how much do you go into that risk mitigation factor? Because, I mean, I know I work a little bit further down the food chain sometimes in the contract manufacturing assembly side, and the large tier 1 companies there have huge systems where they not just monitor political events happening across the world, but also even weather events and anything that could potentially disrupt their supply chains. I mean, it's quite a sophisticated system. Are you set up for that type of thing?
Absolutely. So in that area, we help companies establish what we call risk councils, which are generally cross-functional. So supply chain, operations, supplier, covering everything from ESG concerns to natural disasters, geopolitical challenges, trade barriers. In a lot of areas, we'll partner with some published software providers, such as Resolink. So we're the primary provider for Resolink in all of the Asia-Pacific region, specifically to support a lot of that back-end OSAT capability to then help bring those insights as close to near real time to the OEMs to be able to help them either reallocate or reprioritize available supply, or be able to drive effective communications of when they'll be able to support the customer's needs.
Right. Now, I mean, one of the big things that's happening in the industry and is permeating across the industry is sustainability. Yeah. Companies are looking to reduce their carbon footprint. They're trying to bring things a little bit closer. Are you getting pushed for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we, a woman on my team, Deborah Dole, leads our ESG environment. She used to be part of 0100, which was an analyst firm focused on circular economy. That's a key aspect of everything we do. So we're bringing that into everything from S&OP meetings to start looking at carbon footprint and trade-off. Obviously, it goes into the diversification of the manufacturing network. So as some of the geopolitical tensions have heated up and companies had to diversify from any reliance on the PRC, People's Republic of China, one of the things as we've identified different manufacturing designs has been also looking at the sustainability from a logistics standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, reusable water as an example because of the amount of water that's consumed in the semiconductor manufacturing process. So those are key areas that we work both of our clients as well with several governments who have made an effort to either enter or expand their footprint in the semiconductor industry and how they drive funding and support for multinational and small companies or small and medium enterprises inside of that region.
Yeah, that's an interesting area you mentioned. One of my earlier interviews today, we were talking about some of the large Taiwanese companies that are looking to relocate down into, or not relocate, that's not true, but actually open up other factories.
Geographically diversify.
Okay. Anyway,
I only
excuse
know
me.
it because I live it every
I know. But one of the key concerns is they're looking for places that got obviously copious water supply and that sort of thing. And they've been looking at the southern tips of Mexico where there seems to be a lot of water to be able to relocate down there. So it's an interesting area. Now, I believe that later on this week you've got a presentation coming up on heading towards the $1 trillion economy. You know, when I first heard that a couple of weeks ago in the Semicon West promotional materials, I was taken aback. I was thinking $1 trillion. I could hardly get my head around the number. But I mean, you're doing a presentation on it, so explain to me how you're going to help, what the challenges are, and how you're going to help some of your customers to reach that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously since COVID, the expansion and the growth of the semiconductor industry has been unprecedented. I know a lot of people like to blame the semiconductor industry and say supply chains failed due to COVID. You know, we can debate that at a different time. Reality is the growth of content density, the growth of chip applications, and everything that we use as consumers has just expanded. And it's proliferated the need for more robust supply chains. While the top companies that you would think of, like the Qualcomms, the Broadcoms, NVIDIA, AMDs, and the equipment companies, the Rams, the Applied Materials, the ASMLs, they're capitalized to be able to make that 100 or even 150, 200% growth by 2030.
Right.
The challenge that we're seeing a lot of times is there are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers simply are not capitalized at the level that's required to scale. So one of the biggest things that we're doing when we're working with some of the leading OEMs in the industry is identify where are those pain points within their value chain outside their four walls that need to be further developed, hardened, and or capitalized to be able to be successful.
Right.
The other aspect is anytime you're growing that much, that fast, you have to make a lot of strategic bets on very large and capital-intensive projects, right? And obviously, the CHIPS Act got a lot of press, and new fab development and TSMC developing fabs in the U.S. and Intel's new fabs. Those are 2-year projects, right? So a lot of our clients are leveraging us for assistance around the analytical aspect of when I'm making those bets, how do I make sure that 2 and 3 years ago, A, the bet was big enough, but B, it's also right size for the speed of the tech node innovation and new product development that's happening in the industry.
Right. And you've got to look at that across the whole supply chain, though, not just necessarily the front end and even the back end semiconductor side. You've got to look across the assembly, the PCB, literally the whole supply chain.
The whole supply chain. A lot of times started all the way back at the end customer, right? So looking at like some of the large cloud services providers, right, for data and storage, what does their growth strategy look like to be able to give an indication of what is the need for compute chips, as an example. And then going all the way through the multiple nodes of the supply chain, down to the raw material components.
Yeah. It's a huge challenge, and it's going to be certainly an interesting one. So
it's a huge challenge, and the complexity of it, requires a different paradigm for operations, right? So a lot of companies, as they've gone fabless, right, or they've outsourced assembly and test, OSATs, as you mentioned earlier, they've assumed that that's a transactional relationship. I can issue a PO, and I receive product.
Right.
What COVID has taught us is that that's not the reality. right? And one of the key things with regards to that is a change from a transactional-based relationship to a collaborative-based relationship. So we're seeing fabless companies now shadow planning yield and yield curves of the foundries. We're seeing them also shadow planning and orchestrating and prioritizing OSAT manufacturing capabilities. So the whole nature of the industry has to change. And some of the sub-industries, such as automotive, are further ahead because they felt a lot of the pain. But across all the different industries that the semiconductor companies support, there needs to be a shift from transactional orchestration into collaborative orchestration, which includes both data sharing as well as new governance and organizational design models.
Now you're going to sell all this to the bankers.
Bankers play a key role in developing capitalized projects, as everybody is well aware of.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
We'll leave that for like a second life career path. So.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating time, so an exciting time to be in the industry, and it's a great story to hear. So I want to thank you very much, Michael, for coming in and just giving us a glimpse of your world today.
Absolutely, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having me.